the topics of today, we're going to talk about GeoWeb, we're going to talk about web swell survey, conservation blueprint, and then the snipping tool. If we have time, we'll see. I don't want to keep you guys too long, but if we have time, I'm also going to show the flood mapping tool, which is for the new flood mapping regulations. So just hang on for that if time permits. Okay, the very first topic. Oh, also I should say, we do have instructions on the website for some of this stuff, and we're going to be adding some instructions for some of the other topics. So feel free to take notes, but you know, if you're having too many questions or what have you, you know, we do have other resources for you. So I don't think it's going to be too much of an issue. All right, the very first topic we're going to do is GeoWeb. And so simply you would just type in GeoWeb, and you're going to go to the GeoWeb website, and you click on launch. And this menu is going to come up. I'm just going to close these items, get rid of them. And before I even get into typing a specific property address, I'm just going to talk about some of the things up here. We're going to go over most of these icons at the top, but the very first thing I want to show you is the different layers that this offers. This is pretty comprehensive. If you okay. The first thing is base layer. And if I click on base layer, I can select these various boundaries. If something shows up gray like this, it's simply because I'm too far out. I have to zoom in order to be able to see it. So for instance, you can see the county boundaries, but if I use my roller ball, it's just the roller ball on your mouse. If you don't have a roller ball on your mouse, you can use the plus or minus in the upper left-hand corner to zoom in and out. But if I zoom in enough, then eventually you'll start to see, keep going. There we go. You'll start to see the parcel boundaries. And that tells you obviously where the blocks and lots are. Okay, next thing in this layer list, there's environmental monitoring. I don't find this all that useful. If you're looking for environmental contamination, I find that sites and facilities is a little bit better. This has things like groundwater contamination, gas stations, these types of things. If I click on these, groundwater contamination, here's some known contaminated sites. Let's see what else we have in here. Schools, underground storage tanks. These are all things that you may need, maybe not even for farmland preservation. Maybe you might use these for something else. Maybe if you're doing, you know, like a description of your area in your report, you might want these on. When you turn these things on, you're going to get little like markings. So for instance, if I go, let's see here, groundwater contamination, known contaminated sites. So the known contaminated site is going to be a red star. You can see one right here. There's a couple of them actually. Those are registered with the DEP as being contaminated. This purple thing here is groundwater contamination. So if I turn this off, you'll be able to see. You just click them on and it's very simple. Schools, I showed you that down here. Schools, I think, are a gray. Where do schools go here? Schools are like a gray circle. Here's one right here. And if you click on the gray circle, it'll tell you this is the Howell Township School District. It tells you that this is an elementary school. The name of the school is Lando Pines Elementary, and you can kind of scroll through this and get some very basic information. This one of two at the top, there's a little arrow here. And that'll scroll you to giving you some broader information. So this is just some county information. I can go back. I can click on the X to close it. It's just another little feature. Okay, I'm going to leave those things on just for fun. And then we're going to go to the next layer. The next layer that we're going to talk about is planning areas. The planning area has things like pinelands, highlands. It also has brownfields if you're doing anything with that. So, for instance, pinelands, if I click on that and I zoom out, pinelands map is showing you this green boundary, and that's my pinelands. If I turn that off and I go to highlands, and I'm going to just move this down, here's my highlands, the green and the yellow, my planning and preservation areas. All of these dots are all those things that I was showing you before. The schools, environmental contamination, those things. That's what all these dots are. If I don't like these, if it's becoming too busy, I simply go close this window. I go back to that layer. So that was under the sites and facilities layer. And then I can turn it off. So if I don't want the schools on there, I can click the school and it'll turn off. Okay. All right. Next, I'm going to go back to my planning areas and I'm going to turn off my highlands boundary. And let's see, we're going to go to the next layer, which is energy. If any of you are working on something that has to do with solar, some of these features might be helpful to you. Okay, next is utilities. Utilities is going to be helpful for your sewer service. So you can see that it's gray right now. That's because I have to zoom in. But if I zoom in, that'll start to become available. If you did not attend our conference, you wouldn't know this. But at our conference last year, we had somebody from the DEP talk about what this layer means. When you click on the sewer service area, the yellow comes up and that tells you if your property is in the sewer service area. I'm not going to rehash what the DEP guy said about what that means. And if you're interested, you can go onto the website and you can look at the last year's conference and you can listen to him. It is on there. But basically, the yellow is the sewer service area. According to the DEP, this is updated every couple months, so it should be pretty up to date. Next feature, we're going to go down here to water. Water has things like streams, category 1 streams. Again, you'll see that they're gray. It's because I'm too far out. But if I zoom in, I can click on streams, and streams are going to be noted as a dark green line. I mean, blue, a blue line. I'll be very honest. I don't particularly care for this website for streams. I would prefer Conservation Blueprint for that. I am going to show you that later, but if you're interested, it's here. So there's other things, tidelands, if you're working in those areas, this might be interesting for you. And really the point of this webinar is to more like just inform you that this stuff is out there, and maybe you're not going to use it today, but you might have a job that comes up 6 months from now. Maybe it's not even farmland preservation related, but these are features that you might want to just keep in the back of your mind as discussing this. Would you please mute yourself?
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, next layer. Transportation. If you happen to be interested, and again, this might be something that's coming up maybe in your, your write-up of your area. there are these things like airports or bus lines, the light rail. That's a good example. If I click on light rail, for those of you who don't know, the light rail line goes from Trenton to Camden. So I'm going to move over here so that I can see it. And there is a green line, and I'll turn it off and on so you can see. Off on this green line right here shows you the rail line. This one shows me where the actual stations are. So if I click on that, you can see there's these black dots, and that's the actual station. I can click on it, and the station information pops up. So I want you to kind of remember all of this, because I'm going to get to another feature later where you can draw a radius around your subject. And that radius, and you can define what the radius is, I'm going to show you, but keep all of these things in mind, like rail stops, contaminated sites, because when I show you the radius you can make around your property, it might be a nice visual for your reports to be able to show, oh, look, within so many feet, miles, or whatever, I have a rail line. It might be to you. So just file all this stuff away. I'm going to turn these off, though, because it is starting to get a little bit busy. Okay, then the last layer is imagery. It's very hard to see, but it's the very last one down here that we're going to talk about. This is the standard. It's just like a regular map, but there's all these different images. This is like an aerial image. So it gives you, I can, again, zoom in. And I can see that this is a school of some sort. There's a track with the baseball fields and whatnot. I can turn that off. There's some infrared images. These color images are dated. So if you wanted to see, you know, if there was some building that existed before that may have been demolished in that time, so forth. 1930s black and white imagery, that's kind of cool. You can kind of see, you know, how the landscape was vastly different back then. If you're a map enthusiast, there's a historical map. This is kind of a fun thing. I don't know. You can give it as a gift to somebody. I don't know. And then we have topographic maps. So those are often helpful and sometimes required in reports. This is all free. So you should be using it to your benefit. I'm going to turn the topo off. Sorry about that. Forgot about that. Okay, so far, any questions about the different layers? Any questions? Oh. Okay.
I've got a question, if you don't mind.
Sure. Sure. Go ahead.
I often use the same kind of parameters when I'm searching. So is there any way to set the parameters so when you open the system that it searches the same, you know, wetlands, et cetera, rather than having to do, you know, click a whole lot of options? Maybe there's a number of layers that I would like to search, you know, as a base, and then you can kind of add and delete layers. But a lot of times I want to see some of the same things right up front. Is there any way to kind of save that? So
yeah, I understand your question. I do not know the answer to that, Michael, but we can certainly try to find out. We have, like, you know, a whole staff, and, you know, we all know something. So is that helpful? So Rich is going to mark that down as a question, and we'll get back to you, because I agree that if you're always using wetlands and all these things, it'd be nice to be able to have like a stock map that you can start from there. So we'll get back to you. Good question. All right. Anything else before I go on to actually looking at a property and playing with these other things at the top? Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do is actually type in an address. So if you can simply go into this box, I'm going to type in this address. And when you type the address, it should pop up here, and you can simply click on it. If you don't know your address, and that often happens when we have vacant land, sometimes it's hard to find an actual address. There is this option right here called parcel search. If you click on that, it opens up this window where you can type in your municipality, your block, and your lot. You click on run, and it'll find your property for you. So here's the property that I was looking for. And again, using my roller ball on my mouse, or I can use these things at the upper left, I can scroll out or zoom out rather. If I click and drag, I can move it across my screen. And that's kind of basically how you maneuver through here. It'll give you this little address. You can leave it on. If you don't like it, you can click on the X to turn it off. If I click on the property itself, it selects the property. The only downfall about this window is that now this window is blocking me. It does have, I will tell you this just to get off topic for a little bit. It does give me some tax information. If you're working in Burlington County due to Daniel's Law, you'll notice that the owner name is not in here. Not all counties do that. Some counties have the owner name in there, so that could be helpful to you. But it does give you some basic tax information. I'm going to close this for now. And again, if you want that selected, you can click on it. You notice that that disappears, but we're going to talk about that later. You can click on your little 3 dots at the bottom and go add a marker. And that'll put like a little pin there so that if you kind of are zooming all around, you lose track of where you are, at least you have a little pin to come back to. Okay, the next thing is this icon. We're going to skip that icon for now. This has to do with what Michael was asking about earlier with searching for multiple properties. We're going to use that later. So let's skip over that and let's go to this near me thing. This near me is what I was asking you before, was to kind of remember about making a radius. So this near me thing, I can type in my address here. I'm just going to use the same address. And it makes an actual visual of the radius itself. And you can change this. This is set for 300 feet, but I can change that. So let's say I wanted half a mile. Half a mile is 2640. If I hit enter, it makes this circle around my property. And then remember, I was talking about your contaminated sites. So, who knows if this is something that you would need today, or like I said, 6 months from now. But this shows you that you are not within within half a mile of this contaminated site. Could be helpful. You could use this for other things. Maybe you want to know if you're within half a mile of a train station or of a school or an airport. And look, oh, here's an airport down here. This is the stuff that I just want you to kind of like think about and think of how you might be able to use it. Let's see. Oh, this is sometimes helpful. If you click on county boundaries, this will outline your county for you. And then you can be able to say, oh, okay, I'm in the northwestern section of my county, or you wanted to see how close you are in proximity to your county's boundary. This could be helpful. And again, it gives you some demographic information here, basic census stuff, if that's helpful to you. I'm going to click on this arrow here, and that will take me back out and basically take that county boundary off because I don't want that. And then I can get out of here. So I'm going to close this. And you'll notice that it completely takes it away. I'm going to zoom back in. And I'm going to go on to my next icon, which is, sorry, we're skipping over this one. We're going to this one, which is draw. So let's just go back to my property here. and you want to select the property. So remember I showed you that if you click on it, you get this nice line, but oh, if I click on this to get rid of this big obnoxious box, well then now I lose my selection. But you can use this drawing icon to outline it for you. I recommend if you're going to draw an outline to use something like this. This is a polyline. This is a straight line. You would have to go, an exact straight line. So if you had any bends or anything like that, you would be able to use this really well. But if you click on this, then it pops up all these different colors. Thin, thick, dotted, whatever. So I could say I want purple. And I would just click on one point, move the mouse. I'm not even holding a button. I'm just moving it. And when you get to the next point, you click, go to the next point and click, move over and click. And I'm just clicking on each point. Sorry, pressing mouse. And then when I get to the end, I double click and there's my box. So now I have my subject, my comps, whatever other interesting property you have outlined for me. You could also shade it. I can undo this or I could clear. If I undo, I could shape this using these shapes. Again, I recommend this type of shape. And then it'll show you these are your choices. So if I wanted to do, say, this green, it'll give me like a darker green outline. And then it'll give me a lighter green shade. And there's your subject selected or your comp selected. If you put something like this in your sale write-up, you could put the aerial layer on that I showed you earlier. I'm going to get out of this for a second. Let's go back to the aerial layer that I was showing you. If I go down to imagery and I go to natural, now I have this aerial view. I have my property outlined. I could also then go to another layer. I could choose my land. I could turn on my wetlands layer. And now this is like a perfect thing that you could put in your sale write-up for us. You have the property selected. You have the aerial imagery so we could see what's under there. You have your wetlands. So now I'm kind of using like a whole bunch of these things together to make them all sing for me. And this would be a really nice thing to put into your sale write-up. So that's just kind of like an example. I am going to go back to the drawing tool for a second to show you that you can, this is like semi-transparent. You can make it more transparent or more opaque. You have to do that before you go and select your property. If you go and do it now, it won't register. Okay. Let's see. We have one more cool tool, and then we're going to wrap up the GeoWeb. My last cool trick is this measuring tool.
Excuse me.
Yes.
I have one question. While we're in this ability to draw and shade, is there an ability to label, like type in a label for subject versus comps, that sort of thing?
That's a good question. I don't know if you can do that in here. Mm-hmm. You could do that in other features, like you could go and I'm going to show you how you could bring this into Word, and then from Word, you could add a text box.
Yep.
I don't know if you can do that in here. Rich, can you put that down as a question we could try to find an answer?
Labels, GeoWeb.
Yeah, GeoWeb labels.
Thank you.
Okay, sure. Okay, so I was going to show you the measuring tool. This little ruler is really helpful. It can show you both area and distance. So let's say, for example, I don't know, with area, you want to know how big a pond is or how big a wooded field is, you know, something of that nature. You can use this. Acres is the default, but there's also square miles, square feet. So if you wanted to know, let's say, the footprint of a building, you could select that. You can zoom in. Let's do that. Let's do footprint of a building. And I want to know what the footprint of this barn is. You know, maybe I measured and I think my measurement is off, or maybe, you know, I can't tell if they added on since the, you know, the property record cards measurement, whatever. You click on a point and you're just going to basically, and again, I'm not dragging, I'm just clicking. And when you get to the last point, similar to the drawing feature, you just double click. And now this tells me that it's almost 2,100 square feet for this structure. Great little feature. I can clear that. I can use it to measure distance. So let's say I want to know how far this house is from the road to know if I'm within the setback or something like that. I can click on this ruler to measure distance. This is miles. That's the default. Again, I can change that to feet or yards or meters or whatever. Miles might be good if you're trying to measure the distance between your property and the next intersection, or between a highway interchange, something like that. If I wanted to measure feet, again, maybe for a setback, simply click one point, click the second point. Whoops, sorry. Double click your second point, and then there's your answer. So in this case, it's almost 82 feet. And then you can clear it. Okay, that is about it for web soil survey. So questions about anything that we've done with web soil survey? Sure. Sorry, GeoWeb. I'm getting ahead of myself.
Jolene,
No? Yes.
when you do the measuring, you can also measure wetlands on your property, which saves some aggravation.
Yeah, that's a good thing to do. Yes, that's an excellent example. Thank you. That is an excellent example. If I wanted to go to measure, I would do area. And so this property, I mean, I can kind of eyeball this one, but let's just say I would just kind of click here and follow the contour of my wetlands. Double click. And now I know that I have almost 100,000 square feet of wetlands. That's a great example. Thank you, guys. Any other questions? Okay, then we are going to move on to web soil survey. If you think of something, just put it in the chat. I'm going to open up a new window. I'm going to keep this open just to have, and I'm going to open up a whole new window. And I'm just going to type in the web soil survey and click on web soil survey. This is the big green start button. Just simply click on that. When you get into web soil survey, the first thing is this is national. This is not just New Jersey. So you have to remember to use the New Jersey in your address. I also would like to point out that these things are a little finicky. Like before, I was showing you that you could scroll in and scroll out using your mouse. This is not like that. If I want to zoom in, I have to click on this plus, then click in my map to zoom in. And if I want to zoom back out, I have to click on the minus, then click on my map and zoom back out. If I want to move around, I can't just click and drag because it's going to use whatever last button I push down. So if I start to click and drag, it's going to zoom me out, which is very annoying. You would have to click on the hand. And when you click on the hand, then you can drag your map around. So just keep those things in mind. If you've never used this, that can be very annoying. I'm going to try to find that same property that I used in GeoWeb. So the first thing I'm going to do is click on address, and I'm going to type in that same address. New Jersey. Okay, and here it is. Ta-da! But you'll notice that there's a big difference between this and GeoWeb. In GeoWeb, it outlined it for me. I was able to outline it as an additional feature, but it showed me exactly where the boundaries were. It showed me the block and lot. This does not do that. So what you have to do is actually draw your boundaries. So to do that, there's these two AOI, it means area of interest buttons. I don't recommend using this. This is a rectangle. It's more for like if you want this exact area right here. I don't use that very often, but if you go to this AOI and you click on this polygon type shape, you can click and drag, not drag actually, just click again. I'm just going to outline my property by clicking on various points, and I'm hoping I'm getting this right. And I'm going to double click to close. Now I say I'm hoping I'm getting it right. Now that you're done, there's like a cross hatching. If I were you, I would have an aerial image of the map up so that you can kind of see where the tree lines are, where your natural boundaries are, so that you can select. There is another way, and I'm going to get to that. But for now, just know that this is how you have to do it. And look, lo and behold, my thing is going off my screen. So I'm going to have to click on the hand and just kind of slide it up a little bit. And I'm still cut off. So I have to click on this little minus so that I can make it a little smaller. It's loading. Oh, it didn't take. Minus. Click. Okay, now it's really small. So now I have to click on the plus. I have to wait for it to load. This is a little time consuming. And if you're doing a report for us, you have to put in 5 before sale, actually 4. 4 before sales, 4 after sales. That's a lot of comps to be doing this with. So this is a pretty time consuming exercise. And I will add, this is a pretty simple property too, in terms of, it doesn't have a whole lot of lines. So I'm just going to move this up a little bit. So just hold on to this thought of how you're going to select your property. We at Farmland Preservation require that you put in soils for both your before and your after sales. So in your before, you need sales that show septic suitability. To do that, you would go to your Soil Data Explorer. And when you do Soil Data Explorer, you're going to go to the Sanitary Facilities map. And then you would think you're looking for septic tank, but you're actually going to sewage disposal. And then I can click on View Rating. And I'm going to get a color-coded map that looks like this. The yellow means that it's somewhat limited. Red means these areas are very limited. And if I scroll down, this gives me a table of not only what the soil type is, but also how it's rated in terms of its septic compatibility. At the right, it tells me the acreage and it tells me the percentage of that area. So I know that 85% of my soils are somewhat limited by, with this Pemberton sand soil. I can scroll down further and I get a bigger summary. If you wanted, you could put something like this in your sale write-up to show the types of soils that you have and the percentages of each. But I caution you, because remember before I said, well, I hope this is right as I'm selecting my boundaries. 51.6 acres is the area that I'm coming up with. What if that doesn't match the tax records or what we put in our appraisal order checklist? So now you have a land size that doesn't match. So that can be problematic. I don't recommend doing that. Hold on to that thought because I do have a way to get around that. But while you're holding on to that thought, I'm going to show you the other requirement that we have. So there's basically just two requirements of why you would use this website. One is for your before scenario, which is what I just showed you. That's your septic compatibility. The second is the after. For the after, we're looking for farmland classification. We want to know if those soils are prime or what have you. I'm going to click on this little up arrow and that'll kind of take this menu away. Actually, you know what I'm going to do? Okay, let's see. All right, so let's go up to land classifications. If I click on the down arrow for land classifications, and then I go to farmland classification and choose view rating, I'll get a different color coded map. This has to do with my soils for agricultural use. So again, I can scroll down. Here's the map. This is a nice image of it. And down below, it tells me if the soils are prime. In this case, I don't have any prime, but I have local and I have statewide importance. And again, gives you the percentage. Again, you could just do a screenshot of this and put this in your sale write-up if you're confident that these numbers are accurate. Okay, so that is it for this part of web soil survey. I've covered what we require and how you get there. Any questions so far before I go on to how you can better select your property? Any questions so far? So now let's move on to, Michael asked earlier, how can you select multiple properties? And then this dreaded idea of I have to click on each corner and I might not get the property size correct. And just by the way, let's remember this is 51.6 acres. Everybody remember that. And this is like a magic trick. And I can't take credit for this. This comes from one of our appraisers, and I don't want to embarrass them by calling them out, but I will just say that one of our appraisers showed this to me, and thanks to them, I am now able to show it to all of you. So thank you. You know who you are, and I thank you, and I'm sure all the other appraisers thank you too. Okay, this is really a great trick. But it has a lot of steps. It's not difficult, but the steps are not intuitive either. So I'm going to go through all the steps. We are going to put some instructions on the website as to how to do it. You can take some notes. I'm going to try to go slow, and I am going to do it twice. Once for selecting one property, and then I'll do a second time to show you multiple properties. So you'll have a second chance of if you're taking notes. So we have this property here, but that we had to select manually. But in GeoWeb, they already have properties selected. Let me zoom out a little bit. They have properties selected for me already. So wouldn't it be nice if I could just take this boundary and put it into, make it talk to Web Soil Survey so that it could do the boundary for me? And that's exactly what we're going to do. So I'm going to start over. Let's do that. Let's open up a new window. We'll go to NJ GeoWeb. And I'll type in my address. Better close this way. Close this, type in my address. We're just going to keep using the same address.
This is Hal Eglin. Can I interrupt for a second?
Sure.
somebody asked about presetting your selections in GeoWeb.
Yes.
When you launch GeoWeb, there's a little black box with white lettering in the lower right-hand side. If you click on that, that'll open up all your original settings.
In the lower right-hand side?
Yeah, if you can launch it here again, I can show you what I'm talking about.
So not from here?
No, when it first launches.
Oh, when you first launch. Okay, sure. Let me try it.
And when you
Okay, so-
launch, look in the lower right-hand corner. You have to
This?
click OK, but now that black box, if you click on that, that'll bring you back to where you last were with all of your settings in place.
Okay, so I have to click OK first.
Yes.
Wow.
All the settings that you have selected will already be in place.
So there you go, Michael. There's your answer. Hal, thank you so much.
Very
See,
well.
guys, we all have to work together because everybody knows a little bit of everything. This is perfect. I'm so glad that that's terrific, Hal. I'm sure everyone has learned something based on that comment. So thank you. Thank you so much. That was great. Thank you.
Hope it all works. Thanks.
So far, so good. All right, for the other demonstration, I'm just going to go back to this one. And I'm going to launch GeoWeb. All right. Okay. We took a little detour. That's okay. That was a good detour. Okay. We're back to this. We're selecting our property. I'm zooming out using my roller ball on my mouse. I'm clicking and dragging to move it. I see my whole property here. Okay. This is something that you might not have ever noticed, but there's this little triangle in the bottom center of your screen. And if you point to it, I haven't even clicked on it, I'm just pointing to it. It says Open Attribute Table. If I click on that, it opens this bottom blank window thing. Once you have this bottom window open, you want to click anywhere in your property. You're just going to click somewhere. And when you click on that, it's going to open up. I'm going to zoom in. Okay. When you click on your property, you'll see that it's selected and then this window pops open again. Down in the bottom right corner, there are these three dots. And if you click on those three dots, there's this thing that says View Attribute Table. So you kind of have to remember that that's the name of this thing since it's coming up in your window as an option. It's labeled as Attribute Table. But when you click on View an Attribute Table, my property, block 110, lot 9, comes up into this list. I now need to select it from here. And the way you do that is by pointing at the far left side. There's this thing called the selection handle. I'm going to click in there and you'll notice that this turns blue and this also turns like a darker blue. Okay, that tells you that your property has been selected. The next thing that you have to do, this is a lot of steps, I warned you. The next thing that you have to do, okay, the next thing that you need to do is go up to, I have to move this. Remember I told you about this selection icon and I said that I would come back to it. Now we're coming back to it. When you get to this part, you're going to click on the select handle, select icon, and you're going to scroll down. And what you're looking for is parcels. So I'm going to keep scrolling. They're in alphabetical order. I get down here. Here it is, parcels. When I get to parcels, notice there's a number 1 here. That tells you how many parcels you have selected. Later, when I show you multiple parcels, you'll see that this changes to a 2 or a 3 or whatever. You need to click on these three dots. And now it's going to start to get a little, out there. When you click on those three dots, you're clicking on export to GeoJSON. And this is kind of what I meant by this, not really intuitive. But if you click on export to GeoJSON, you'll notice that up here where your downloads go, this file name goes up there. Okay. Now we know that we have downloaded, basically you're downloading these boundaries up to here to this GeoJSON. Okay, the next thing that you have to do is open up a new window because we're going to go to another website. So I click on a new tab and I'm going to type in map shaper. You can see it up there, mapshaper.org. mapshaper.org. Okay. This is very simple. We're going to be in here for 5 seconds. I'm going to click on select because I need to get that file that I just downloaded. And when I click on select, your downloads window should open. If it doesn't, you need to go into downloads from over here. And here is that GeoJSON file that was downloaded just a minute ago. So I click on that, click on open. Here is my file that I just selected. I'm going to click on import because I now want to bring that GeoJSON file into here. Ta-da! It's fabulous. So now I have the boundaries from GeoWeb in here. Okay, big deal. This doesn't look like anything. What am I going to do with it? Now I click on export because now we have to get it from here and get it over to Web Soil Survey. So the first part of that is that you have to click on export. And when you click on export, you might think that you want GeoJSON, but no, you do not. What you actually want is shape file, because this website created a shape file. We already had a GeoJSON, and that was just one part of the process. So click on shape file, and that is what you're exporting. So now you click on export. And you'll notice that when you do that, up in the downloads, you get this another file that has a little zipper on it. And this is your zip file. So this is your shape file that has been zipped. That's all we need to do from here. Now we need to go back to Web Soil Survey and tell it to go and get this information. So I'm going to go back to Web Soil Survey. Let's open a new one. Okay, before, oh, that didn't, that's all right. Before we used this area of interest to select it, I'm going to go back to area of interest. And these are really the only two things that I use in here, by the way, area of interest and Soil Data Explorer. If you click on area of interest, now instead of drawing that, we're going to import an AOI. Oh, rats. Let's clear that. I can't show off if this is still here. So I'm going to click on clear AOI, and that'll get rid of my previous setting. And then I'm going to go up here to import AOI. And when I click on import AOI, here is the zipped shapefile. Remember I showed you how to zipper. Click on create AOI from zipped shapefile. You have to choose a file because I might have more than one. So click on choose file. It automatically opens, or should open, this download menu. Go to your zipper file, which was this one, and here's your time. Click on your zipper file and then go to open. And wait for the magic to happen. Oh, sorry, we have to click on set AOI. Wait for it. Ta-da! Okay, so remember I said that it was 50.6 acres, but look over here, 42.1. I would have been off by 8 acres. That's a lot. So if you're trying to do soils in Web Soil Survey, I highly recommend that you use GeoWeb to take their property boundaries and bring it into here. That was a lot of steps, I know. But we're going to do it again because we had someone ask how to do multiple properties, and I'm sure that there's more than one of you who want to know multiple properties. So, okay. So before I go on to multiple properties, any questions about what I just did and any of those steps? And we are going to go through all of those steps again. Okay.
Did you have to click on the map at all, or it just knew where to go from a longitude, latitude kind of standpoint?
You mean once I got into here? Once I got into the soil survey? No, I did not click on the map. Somehow it knows, it takes the area of interest somehow from from GeoWeb and that whole like GeoJSON file and the map shaper, and somehow through all of that and importing it, it knows. So once you select that file and you click on area of interest, it just plots it. And I know it seems like a lot of steps, but if you've done this, you know how frustrating it can be if you are, missing the acreage, or maybe it's a property that has a lot of contoured lines or whatever, and you're doing this a lot of times because you have to do it for all your comps. Once you do this, this selection method that I'm going to show you, or that I've been showing you, thank you to our, I don't want to embarrass them, but thank you. Once you do it a few times, it does kind of become just like anything else, and you won't need your notes or anything. It'll just become natural. It's a lot of steps, but it's not hard. So now let's go back and let's do multiple properties. Okay, are we ready for multiple properties? Any other questions about singular property first? Okay, so for multiple properties, let's first go back to GeoWeb. And I do want to let you know that there is a refresh button down here. If I refresh this, you know what I'm going to do? Let's first clear the selection. Let's clear this. And if I refresh, you're going to notice that we get, I'm going to scroll through, a big long list of properties. That's because it will show you whatever you have on the screen. So if I zoomed out, it would show me a bigger list. If we want to choose multiple properties, and we're going to keep this interesting, we're going to choose 2 non-contiguous properties. Let's say we want to use, let's do this one 4 and this one lot 8. I can scroll through this list to select them just like I clicked on this one to select it before. If I click on 4, if I click on 4, go away. Click on 4. And then I click on 8. Like, you can't have both of them because it doesn't like that. Okay. So, and even if, like in Windows, they teach you that you could hold down the control key. And if you hold down control, you can select multiple things. But right now, I'm going to hold down my control key, and you'll see I'm holding my control key down now. I can't. It deselects the first one. So the workaround is this list at the bottom. Okay, so I want to select 2 properties. I'm going to do block 110, lot 4, block 110, lot 8. I have to select it from down here. There are a lot of properties in this list. You can use these to sort them. So I'm going to sort by block. It doesn't work well if you sort by block and lot, so kind of just choose one. So I'm going to sort, I want block 110. So I'm going to click block 110, click the block header, sort ascending, and I'm going to scroll down and I'm going to look for 110. Okay, there's 110. I want 4. And what did I say? 8. Oh, there's 8. So to select it, remember you go all the way to the left and you click there. Now 8 is selected. You can see it up top. I'm going to go down. I saw 4. There's 4. Here's where you use your control key. Hold down control on your keyboard. Click this bar at the left of 4. And now you notice that both properties are selected. That's the trick, really. That's it. Now you can see at the right in this select menu, this is now a 2, telling me that I have 2 properties selected. I could pick another one and then it would change to a 3. Any questions about this so far before I go through the GeoJSON thing again? Lauren?
Yeah, so, under the attribute table, you have to do the control click to do multiple lots?
Yes. So, and you have to click at the left-hand side. You hold your control key down on your keyboard.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Anybody else? Okay, so remember, this is where it starts to get a little, crazy. I have my select, this came from the icon at the top, remember. Parcel data, click on your 3 dots, and you're going to export to GeoJSON. It's like a basketball player's name or something, right? Okay, I now know that I have it up here in my options, so it's been downloaded. And now all I'm going to do is go to my map shaper. I'll just close this and open up it just to give you the. Okay, so if I go to map shaper, I can click on select. There's my GeoJSON file from my downloads. I click on that, click on open. Here's my GeoJSON file. So I click import. And there are my 2 properties. And I know I said to all last time, it's not that exciting now. Now I can click on export. Remember, you have to change it to shapefile. Then you export. And there it pops up as my little zipper. Now I can go back to Web Soil Survey. I'm going to clear this, get rid of this. Clear AOI. And then I'm going to create AOI from zipped shapefile. I have to choose the file. Here's my zipper. I want the most recent one. Click on open. Click on set AOI. And there they are. And then from here, you could then go to your Soil Data Explorer and you could get your maps for your septic and for your farming classification. That's it. That's like the dazzler of today. Hopefully there's other stuff that you're getting out of this. But anyway, questions about that? Nope. Okay. That's all I have for GeoWeb and Web Soil Survey. So the next thing we're going to go on to is Conservation Blueprint. So last call for any questions on this. I'm going to close these out. Okay. I'm going to close some of these so that I don't crash. Okay, the next website is called New Jersey Conservation Blueprint. And you can see it right there. Also free. They do have a new version. It basically has a lot of the same features. It's just in a different format. If I scroll down, they have these choices down below. We are going to be using the agricultural map this morning. You could also access this map by going up here to Power User. If you click on that Power User, then you can click on the agriculture. It's just a little quicker than scrolling through. Okay, this map, also a New Jersey thing, it has a lot of great features, and we're going to talk about some of them. The very first thing that I would do when you get to this thing is turn this off. This is interesting for another day. It basically puts these blue, green, and yellow dots on, and it starts to get very difficult to read because there's a lot of stuff on here. So if you click on that check mark, it'll turn it off. What you do want to put in is your boundary layers. If you click on boundary, you can have your state. You can see that I have the county selected. You can also have municipalities if you want. And for this purpose, I'm not going to use municipalities, but I do want parcels. So I'm going to turn my parcels on. Don't panic at all the white. That's just all the outlining. That just outlines my block and lot. I would like to find that same property that I've been using all day. I'm going to click on this little magnifying glass, and I'm going to type in my address. Thankfully, my address popped up here. If your address does not pop up here, you have to open up a different window. It'll actually be another window that pops up to put in your block and lot. And that would be by going over here to this little accordion map looking thing. If you click on that accordion map, you're going to go down here to Parcels, Parcel Explorer. And it didn't open the new map, the new window. Anyway, you can come in here and you can put in your block and lot, choose your municipality, choose your block and lot, and you could access your property that way. Because again, the same thing, vacant land, oftentimes we don't have it, an address, so on and so forth. You can then simply go back to that map that we were in by clicking on this and then going to agriculture. So this little map thing here is what's going to be able to allow you to toggle back and forth if you need that. Okay, turn these things off, and I'll type in my address. Okay, so here's my address. I'm going to zoom in so I can better see. Okay, remember, I want to put those parcel layers on. So I'm going to click on the double lines here, and I can then access a lot of these mapping features with the double line. If you click on boundary layer, go to parcels, there's my white lines. And it has the block and lots labeled, very similar to GeoWeb. Okay, so what's down here? Component layers. Component layers is where you're going to find things like preserved farmland. Why would that be important? Well, sometimes we search for sales and we don't know if they're preserved or not. You can click on this And this tan color represents a preserve farm. So I'm just zooming out with my mouse, and all of these tan parcels are preserve farms. These green things indicate exception areas. What if you can't remember that stuff? You can go over here in farmland soils, you can, preserve farmland, you can click on this little arrow and a little legend will pop up to show you what these things mean. So the green indicates a non-severable exception. Somewhere in here, there's one that has a darker, whatever color this is, orange. That would be a severable exception. So that's just one layer. If you're interested in preserve, I'm going to turn that off. Another one that you might be interested in is farmland soils. So if I click on these soils and I go to my property here, I can see that most of my property is this tan color, and then I have some of these creamy patches, and then there's this darker thing to the side. Again, I don't know what that means. I can click on this little arrow and it'll give me a legend to tell me that the darker color is prime, the medium color is statewide, and then this yellowish one is unique. But it doesn't give you percentages, or at least not here. But I will show you a trick. So if I click on my property and I right click on my property, I can go to Parcel Explorer from here. This opens up your new window. And in Parcel Explorer, I can go to Farm Soil Classification. I can click on that arrow there, and there is a description. So it's not in the same exact area as this map that has the visual. Let me close that. But these two together could be helpful for you when you're doing your after sales. So this is more like tabular form, and this is more of your visual. So this is the Parcel Explorer, like sister sort of this conservation blueprint, but you know, they go together. Okay, so that is farmland soils. And I'm going to turn that off for a second, and I'm going to go down here to reference layers. If I scroll down, I get more options here. So remember I was telling you before about how I don't like the streams option in GeoWeb. I can turn on streams with buffers in this, and you'll notice that you get these streams. The dark blue is the water itself, the light blue is the buffer. If you're using a C1 stream, have a C1 stream. If I scroll out, here's an example of a C1 stream. And for those of you who don't know, a C1 stream is an environmentally protected area. So it has a big buffer. This yellow is your buffer, 300 feet on either side. So that's a whole football field on either side of the stream. Well, look at this property. This property is almost entirely encumbered by buffer. It barely has stream on it, but because it's encumbered by buffer, it's going to be very difficult to develop this property. So these are all things that you just want to file away in the back of your mind. Remember that these exist. These are good tools to have. In addition to streams with buffers, I could turn on wetlands. This is just another wetlands map, very similar to the other one. They should be the same. Turn that on and off. The same thing, pinelands. So this pinelands map, remember in the GeoWeb map, I showed you pinelands and it kind of outlined the whole thing in green. If I turn on pinelands management areas, this is going to be slightly different. I'm going to zoom all the way out. See how I have multiple colors? Again, remember, if you don't know what the colors mean, you can click on this to get your legend. This has each of the different management areas. So if you're not familiar with Pinelands, that's kind of like Pineland zoning, sort of. But you can scroll in and you can see if your property is in the regional growth area, or maybe it's in rural development, or what have you. When you're doing Pinelands, sometimes there can be some, little difficulty in trying to figure this stuff out. So these maps are great tools for things like that. And then there's also Highlands and Highlands Planning and Preservation, very similar to Pinelands. If I scroll out, there's my Highlands area. Okay, so these are things that you should play with. There are different options for you. I'm going to turn this off. Different features. I'm going to go back to my little friend here. Zoom in on him. Okay, so now that I have him back, I'm going to put my wetlands back on for a second. Okay, so there's my wetlands. And remember I said hopefully they're the same. I mean, this pretty much does look like what the other map did. It's, the wetlands aren't in like some different place or anything like that. Let's see, there's some other things that we can talk about. There are other layers here. Oops, let me move this out of the way.
Would that wetlands take the buffer off the one below?
So there's two, Rich just had a question asking about the buffers. This is wetlands with buffer. You can notice there's like a little, the difference, is like a little, I don't know, extra boundary or whatever. This is just strictly wetlands, and it has a slightly different presentation. It's a little cleaner looking. The other one has those little bushes or whatever. It makes it a little difficult. These are all things that you should be playing with. You're not going to break it. So just click on them, play around with them. You're appraising a property and you want to know, oh, geez, am I next to open space? I can click on this open space. And here's your open space, these green things. So it's just kind of nice for you to, when you're investigating, just, you're trying to get yourself familiar to kind of know what's around you, things like that. There's this map layer thing over here. And when you click on that, there are different choices. Aerial imagery, kind of similar to the other map that we looked at where it has different dates, infrared, topo maps, historic maps, very similar features. I will tell you one thing. Sometimes this map gets glitchy. And when you start zooming in and out, the whole thing will go white. If that happens, your workaround is to change the map. Maybe you choose this map box satellite, maybe you choose it to aerial image, change it to something else. And when you change it to something else, I mean, I'm not having a problem now, so it doesn't, it's not really very exciting. But when you change it to something else, it'll fix that glitchiness. So just write that down because this will happen. This can be a very temperamental website for no reason at all. Okay, let's see. What else is there to talk about here? Oh, I know what I wanted to say. This also has a measurement tool. So it works very similar to the other website. If you go over here to this little thing that looks like a T-square or whatever that is, you point to that and go to create new measurement. And very similar, it measures distance and area. So if I want to measure, I don't know, the size of, like I said, a pond or a setback or whatever, you're just clicking, clicking, clicking. And when you double click, it finishes the size and it tells you this happens to be 8.92 acres. This happens to give you the perimeter. So remember when I was doing my, the footprint of the barn, this would tell you perimeter if you're doing any sort of cost basis and you want to know that. So I could do, also I could go back, create a new measurement, and I could do a linear distance. So if I wanted to know the distance from here to here, just double click to finish it. And there's your feet. If you wanted to know frontage, setback, anything that you would want a distance for, it's a really great tool. Let's see. I think that might be it for this one. All right, how are we doing on time? We're pretty good on time. Okay, any questions about this map before I move on? This is your time to ask. I know I kind of went through this quick. The thing about Conservation Blueprint, all of them really, but the thing about Conservation Blueprint is that you just have these choices here, and whether they're under reference layer or component layer, that's really kind of all there is. And it's just a matter of clicking on these things to see if they have what you want and zoom in and out. But think of how nice these maps are in your reports. So this is kind of a really good underestimated tool, I think. Okay. I am going to, I know there's some people that wanted to jump off before I get to the snipping tool. And the snipping tool is really how you can take these images and put them into your documents, your emails, whatever. But before I get to that, I am going to call an audible and I'm going to do Flood Mapper just so that you can see. So you may recall I sent an email that for those of you who are approved appraisers, you would have received this email that the DEP has changed the flood regulations. And the reason that's important is that they basically made them stricter. So if you're using like a FEMA map, the FEMA maps for New Jersey are now basically outdated. So I'm going to show you a mapping software, a mapping website that you can basically do like sort of an informal, how does this affect me, this new regulation? Basically, they added 3 feet to what the firm maps are. So I'm going to open a new website, and the new website is called NJ Flood Mapper. NJ Flood Mapper. Okay, and you should know, I'm going to close this. This is not a regulatory tool. I don't know when maps are going to be like formally updated or whatever, but this is just more of a guide for you. You would need survey to those, officially, but I'm going to show you just once you're in this flood mapper, you can go to this flood hazards. This is pretty simple. And when you click on flood hazard, you're going to basically adjust the water level. So the new standard is now 3 feet higher than what it used to be. So we're going to change this to 3 feet. And then I'm going to click on this add button and you'll see why in a little bit. All right, so now by clicking on add, the coloring comes in. I'm also going to set it back to 0. And you'll see why also. When you set it to 0, I have to click add. There's also this feature down here where you can get the FEMA flood zones. If I click on add. Okay, so now you can see all the FEMA stuff that came in. So I'm going to close this window so it's easier for us to see. And let's zoom in using the rollerball on my mouse. And I'm just going to zoom, 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 zoom. I am going to turn off the FEMA map for now. At the top right, since I've turned these things on, you can just use these toggle buttons. And when I turn off or on, it brings the layers off and on. So I'm not interested in FEMA right now. Let's pretend that doesn't exist. I would like to know, and I'm not interested in this right now either, so I'm going to turn that off. But what I am interested in knowing is what is the current water level? This is like your 100-year thing. So I'm going to just take a look at this and I'm like, oh, okay, I see. Yeah, all right, my property is in a flood zone here. Oh, okay, I see. Now let me see what it would look like if I added this 3 foot. You can barely see, but you can see the difference where there's just a little bit more shading. But if you go into lower lying areas, Burlington County, Gloucester County, if you go down, let me go down to, let's say, down here. Let's try this area. And I turn this on again. You can see a little bit more drama. So what does this tell you? This tells you that if your property was not in the floodplain before, if you're clicking this button where you're putting this 3 foot on and now all of a sudden your property is covered, then you might be in the floodplain now. It's still, you know, like we don't work with the DEP. This is the DEP's thing. So if you had questions, I would contact them. From what we're told, you know, this has to be defined by a survey, as I said. This is your unofficial guide, but it's just something like if you do this, if you're looking at your property, you should just be aware and take a look at these maps, question your client, question whoever it might be, to get an answer. So I just wanted you guys to see this. There's mapping layers here also. That's not the thing I wanted. Base maps is what I wanted. If you go to base maps, you can put on, say, imagery, and you get the aerial overview. You can also, like this, it's pretty hard to see through these, but just like I showed you before with the opacity, I can make this less opaque, just make it a little bit more transparent so that you can see, like under here now, I can see the bushes a little bit better, the trees, than if I make it completely opaque, then you can't really see. So I wasn't even planning to show you this, but this is just really down and dirty. And if I turn my FEMA back on, now you can see this is your FEMA map. And I can play with that too, with the opacity on this, so that I can see where the stream is underneath by making this less opaque. Okay. Questions about the flood mapper before I go into Snipping Tool? Or questions about anything that they've done so far?
Yep, I have one. Is there an
Sure.
address box? Is there an address box on this site?
Oh, that's a good question. I think if you clicked on this,
Got it.
I could type in. And there's my.
Thank you.
Anything else? Okay, so the next thing I'm going to show you, and I think a lot of you probably know about this. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it. I just want to make you aware because it is a really cool trick, especially if you're still scanning your maps and so forth. Let's go to, let's just go back to this one. Okay. I am going to go to my window button in the lower left-hand corner. And you may or may not even know that you have this thing. But if you don't have it up, you can click in your search programs thing and you can call, I'm just gonna, but if you click down here, what I'm looking for is this thing called Snipping Tool. And basically what it is a way of you to select something like, say, this map and put it into your reports or email or whatever. And it's very easy to use. You just click on your snipping tool. If it goes away, you go down here to the scissors and you get it. You click on new. And you're going to click and drag. I go from the top left to the bottom right, so kind of figure out where you want to go. Click and drag to select your property. And that seems very simple, and it is. And I can now copy this by using the copy icon. And then I can go to Word. Let's hope that Word is on here. Okay. And let's pretend that I have a report open, and then I would paste. From here, you just simply go up and click on paste, and there's my image. And that's really a nice, quick way to get any of your mapping or anything for that matter. You could something from any website or whatever, and you could paste it into Word, like I said, your email or whatever. But there's more. So in your snipping tool, if I go back to my snipping tool, this is still the image that I have selected. There are other features up here. Here is a pen. I can click on this little arrow and there's colors for the pen. So maybe I want the pen to be red instead. So I choose red and then I say, oh, you know what? I want to draw your attention to this. I am holding down the mouse and I'm clicking and I'm dragging. You kind of have to have a steady hand and it's not going to be perfect, but you can click and drag to draw on your image. You can use the eraser to erase whatever you did, and it goes away pretty easily. You can change the pen. Notice there's a custom pen. If I click on custom pen, I have this other type, but if you go back up here to customize, you can change it to be what that custom pen is. So for me, on my computer, I have my custom pen set to red. I have a thickness and I don't use this chisel. I have a round tip. So for me at my computer, my customized pen looks like this. Again, use this to delete. And so if you're trying to point something out to a property owner or whatever, that's an option. There's also a highlighter. So if you click on the highlighter, I can highlight the boundary of my property. Now, we did show you that there's a drawing feature. It's a little bit better than this. This is not so easy to use. You do have to have a steady hand, but it is also good for, I don't know, you want to highlight, I don't know, something that's not all that important and you don't, not for a report or something, but something that's a little less significant. So this is just another feature I just wanted to show you. Now I could copy this. I could go back down to Word. I could paste it. And now I have my image with the highlighting on it, or your pen, or whatever. Any questions about the pen? I know, or the snipping tool? Okay, I think that is it for this morning. Is there any question that we still have? If not, oh, Lauren has a question. Go ahead, Lauren. Lauren, I can't hear you.
Yeah, sorry, my internet was cutting out. How do you,
Okay.
you said that you record these. How do I access these webinars?
We are going to post this on the website. I don't know how long it's going to take to get onto the website. We have a person who's doing the website now. So I will stop the recording and they'll post it, and but it'll eventually be on there. And for those of you who do not know our website, you can just Google New Jersey Farmland Preservation. And under Farmland Preservation, there's an appraisal tab. And we've been building that. So we put stuff up there that, you know, we think is useful. Hopefully you would too. And you can go on there at any time and pull up whatever you need. Anything else? Okay, guys, don't go away. Rich, how are we doing on attendance? Rich is trying to take attendance, make sure that you guys get full credit. Rich, are we missing anybody?
If you're not here, let me know.
All right. Are you missing anybody?
I think we're very good on attendance. There'll just be a test now. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay.
I think the attendance looks pretty good. We still have 43 people on. I think that was our max.
Okay. All right, terrific. So if there's no other questions, you guys are dismissed. I hope that you found this informative. Hopefully you learned something, and look on our website for the recording, and then also the instructions for how to do those, putting the mapping boundaries into your web soil survey, as well as the multiple parcels. I'll stay on in case anybody has any questions, but thank you so much, everyone, for attending. You're dismissed.